So your Baby Lock Ovation is both an overlock and a cover stitch machine. And so let's explore a little bit about what that cover and chain stitch capability is. So you probably noticed that I've got my machine set up with gold thread here. And I did that because I think it's easier for you to see the color-coded part of the machine. So all of my needles, my chain needle 1, chain needle 2, chain needle 3, and my chain looper threads all have gold thread in that area. The other thing that I'm going to do, like always, is I'm going to start by consulting my quick reference threading guide for exactly how I need to set the machine up. I may not have stressed it before, but I'll stress it now. Whenever you're setting up your Ovation serger for a particular stitch, it's best to do the physical settings on the machine first. We know the machine's super easy to thread. It's super easy to get to that point, but you want to make sure that you've got everything set up in the right place. So I'm going to follow this triple cover stitch setting here. And the very first thing that we look at is our needle positions. So earlier in this video, we had all of our needles in the overlock needles 1 and 2. Well, if you look very closely, you'll notice that I have 3 needles over here. They're on the chain needle side of the machine. And the thing that's really crazy about it is look at the way that these needles are in here. They're all different lengths. Well, they're that way for a reason. It's not a test of skill to see if you can get them to be the right length. They have to be like this, all right, in order to be able to stitch well. And one of the things that you can do to check yourself is to look up here in this window. I'm going to point to it here with my Allen wrench, and you'll notice if you look very closely that you can see the tops of the heads of the needle. So this way you know visually that you've got them as high as they can go. It's one of the most common mistakes that people make on their serger is that they don't put the needles in as high as they can go. So all of my needles are in position as high as they can go. And let's look at some of the other settings from our quick reference threading guide. My stitch length should be between 2 and 4. Well, I've got my stitch length on 3, so I'm good. My stitch width, it says it doesn't matter, but I know that what it really means is that I need to make sure that my cutting blade width is as narrow as it can go. So I'm going to turn this so that this is as narrow as it can go, which puts me at like 5.5. The next thing I'm going to do is check and make sure that I have my chain needle tension set between 4 and 6. So that's this guy here, and he's on 5, so we're good there. My chain looper tension should be on cover. Well, on the side of your machine, you'll notice that it says cover or chain, and so you want to have it in the area where it's cover stitch. My upper looper selector, I showed you where it was, but I didn't show you how to disengage it or how to re-engage it, so let's do that now. Open up the front of your Ovation, and that's this knob right here. I've got it pointing to the word up. This is my upper looper right here. My upper looper has been engaged the entire time that I've been sewing so far because it's what helps form some of my overlock stitches. But when I don't want to have it engaged, and that's when I want to put the cover table on, I'm going to take my stitch selector knob and I'm going to move it to the word down. Now once I've done that, in order to make that complete, I have to rotate my hand wheel always towards me 1 full turn. So now that my upper looper is down, guess what? I can keep turning and it's not going to come up. All right. Next, my blade position. Well, I'm going to lock my knife. So remember how we did that? We took and rotated this towards the back of the machine until the word lock is exposed. And lastly, the sewing table. Well, that means we have to remove this guy. I'm going to pinch him, pull him straight out, and I'm going to put the table on, but I'm going to wait until I've threaded my machine first. So that's all the physical changes that I have to make. Now it's time to thread. So we've not used it before, but we're going to now use the chain looper. And the chain looper is this very last thread over here. And so I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to drape it up over the thread guide. And this time I'm going to start with this little silver piece that's here on the outside of the machine. I'm going to take and bring the thread from the outside towards the inside of the machine. And once you've picked that up, go ahead and just drop it down. And I'm going to pick it up and bring this up and over this little knob right here. Click it in place here. And I want to pull down an ample amount, at least 10 inches or more, because what I'm going to be doing is putting that thread here in that chain looper port. Now I have to engage my threading ports, and so I'm going to move my lever from serging to threading, and I'm going to rotate my hand wheel until it clicks and it won't turn anymore. Take a tiny bit of the thread, And we're going to place it here into this chain looper and blow it through. So now to find your chain looper thread, you'll have to open up this side of your Ovation serger, and in this little basket here, that's where your thread blows through. Lift it up from this basket, cut it off on the side of the machine, and then tuck it back inside and close the door. We're not going to mess with him again. Now we're going to begin by threading our needles, and we can do this in any order. I'm going to go ahead and start with my left needle position, my C1. I'm going to drape it over the top. And now here is where I'm going to click this in, and so watch the special way that I click. I'm going to bring it up from the center. Make sure that your presser foot is lifted, and you're going to bring it down in this first track, around, up and over this metal piece, and down. Lastly, I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to tuck it behind this thread wire here, and I'll wait and hold him there until I thread all my needles at once. Now I'm going to do my C2 position, drape him up and over the wire. This guy goes from the center and clicks up, goes straight down this track, up and around and over, and he also goes behind this thread wire. Lastly, I'll grab my chain needle 3, which is my far right needle, click him in place on the back, bring down this track. All 3 threads go up and around in the exact same place. And once again, I will tack him right here behind this. And now I'll thread the needles using my needle threader. So when we put our chain looper thread in, we kept it downstairs. And what's important here is that we're going to keep those threads up and over the foot, cutting them off here. And that's how you begin serging. So now our last piece of the equation, we're going to put the table on. Close your door. Make sure that you take your selector and put it back to serging, and you'll be able to close this door too. There are 3 big rules for cover stitching. One of them is to make sure that that chain looper thread stays downstairs. That's what we did. You also want to make sure that those needle threads stay up and over to the left. Don't tuck them underneath the foot like you normally would. And then the third thing is make sure you start stitching in fabric. So I've got a nice big area on my Ovation to do cover stitching, and I'm going to do a triple cover hem here. Absolutely perfect. Now once you've begun stitching in fabric, you can go ahead and stitch off the edge, and then you can begin stitching in fabric again. That's called chaining off. It's one of the big wows on the machine. So now that I've already established my stitch, I can go ahead and start serging wherever.